Hey guys, welcome back. Tonight, we're traveling through 26,000 years of cosmic history. A journey beyond time where stars move like whispers and civilizations rise and fall beneath their glow. This is the story of the Great Galactic Cycle, an astronomical phenomenon so vast, so powerful, that it has shaped the destiny of every civilization that has ever walked this earth. Every 26,000 years, our entire solar system completes one majestic orbit around the galactic center. And as the heavens shift, something extraordinary unfolds. Ice ages melt away. Golden ages begin. Civilizations bloom, then vanish into dust. And from time to time, the Earth itself resets through great catastrophes that reshape history. The ancient Egyptians built the Sphinx to align with this cosmic heartbeat. The Maya tracked it with astonishing precision. Even Plato wrote of it, calling it the Great Year. Tonight, as you drift between waking and dream, you'll discover how this cosmic history connects Atlantis, the Great Flood, the Age of Pyramids, the fall of Rome, and even the world we live in today. Because we're not just observers of this galactic dance, we are living inside it. This is deep history. This is cosmic history. And by the time you drift off tonight, you'll understand why our ancestors looked to the stars and why their wisdom still matters today. So before you get comfortable, take a gentle moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if these deep sleep stories help you find peace, sleep better, or simply reflect on our shared journey through time. No pressure, no rush, just gratitude. Now, close your eyes. Let the music of the cosmos carry you, and let the story begin. Close your eyes and imagine standing at the edge of time itself. Around you, the stars move in slow silence, each one tracing a secret path across the dark ocean of the cosmos. Every 26,000 years, our solar system completes one grand rotation around the galactic heart, a journey so vast that no civilization has ever lived long enough to see it twice. Tonight, we begin within that rotation, the great cosmic cycle known as the Great Year. To the ancient Greeks, it was more than astronomy. It was philosophy written in starlight. Plato called it the perfect year, a cycle in which the heavens return to their original alignment, like a divine clock resetting after an age. To the astronomers of ancient Egypt, it was the rhythm behind eternity. They believed the gods themselves moved according to this celestial calendar, and that humanity's fate rose and fell with the stars. Imagine for a moment the magnitude of that time scale. 26,000 years. Empires would rise, crumble, and fade into dust long before even one tick of this cosmic clock was complete. What we call history, the wars, inventions, kings, and revolutions, is merely a flicker in its turning. To the Maya, this cycle wasn't measured by centuries, but by suns.
They saw time as alive, breathing, and eternal. Their calendars weren't predictions of endings, but reminders that endings and beginnings are the same thing, phases in a greater spiral. So what exactly is this great year? It's not a myth nor a metaphor. It's a real astronomical motion. The slow, steady wobble of our planet as it spins. This motion, known as the precession of the equinoxes, is caused by Earth's slight tilt and gravitational dance with the sun and moon. Like a spinning top, wobbling slowly on its axis, the Earth traces a gentle circle in the heavens over 26 millennia. And with every turn, the stars above shift ever so slightly. What rises in the east today will not rise in the same place for the civilizations of tomorrow. It's subtle, invisible in a lifetime, yet undeniable in the language of centuries. Ancient astronomers discovered this not through telescopes, but through patience. Over generations, they noticed sacred stars like Sirius or Polaris drifting from their once perfect alignments with temples and monuments. The Sphinx, the pyramids, Stonehenge, each whispering that humanity once understood its place within a cosmic rhythm. When you see the universe this way, time itself changes shape. The years we count, the ages we name, they become ripples in a far deeper current. Our clocks measure seconds, but the galaxy keeps time in epochs. To understand the great year is to realize that history isn't random. It breathes, it repeats, it evolves in waves. The ancients knew this. That's why they built monuments, not just for their gods, but for the sky itself, to remind future generations that the heavens are not just above us, they are within us. If you could rise above the Earth and watch from the silence of space, you'd see something astonishing. The planet doesn't spin perfectly upright. Its axis tilts just slightly, about 23.5 degrees, like a dancer leaning into an invisible rhythm. And as it turns, that axis slowly traces a vast circle across the heavens, completing one rotation every 26,000 years. This motion is called the precession of the equinoxes, the slow wobble of our world. Imagine a spinning top, still balanced yet gradually shifting its orientation. Over centuries, this cosmic wobble changes the background stars against which we measure the seasons. The constellations of the zodiac, once aligned with specific points on Earth's orbit, drift along the ecliptic, creating what ancient astronomers called the 12 ages. Each zodiac age lasts roughly 2,160 years, like a chapter in the history of human consciousness. The age of Taurus, when bull cults and fertility gods ruled the ancient world. The age of Aries, marked by fire, conquest, and empire. The ram's horn echoing through the temples of Egypt and the wars of Greece. Then came the age of Pisces, symbolized by water and faith, when the great religions of compassion and salvation flourished. And now we stand at the dawn of Aquarius, the water bearer, the age of knowledge, of air and energy,
of rediscovering what the ancients already knew, that time moves not in lines, but in spirals. For those who watched the sky millennia ago, this was not superstition. It was science wrapped in poetry. They saw the heavens turning and realized that every shift in the stars mirrored a shift within ourselves. As the earth wobbled, so did civilization, from agricultural awakenings to technological renaissances, each age carrying its own flavor of light and shadow. The great Persian astronomer Hipparchus was among the first to quantify this motion. Around 130 BC, he compared ancient star charts with his own observations and found that the stars had drifted not by error, but by time itself. To him, it was proof that the heavens were alive. Later, Ptolemy refined his data, calling it the precession, a word that would echo through centuries of study. Even now, modern astronomy confirms what the ancients intuited. The Earth is a living gyroscope, swayed by the pull of the sun, the moon, and the invisible tides of the galaxy. And this slow celestial rhythm affects more than geometry. It influences climate, seasons, and perhaps even the patterns of civilization. When ice ages come, when the poles shift, when epochs of warmth ignite new ages of growth, they follow the hidden mathematics of this galactic dance. The Maya called it the Great Return. The Vedic sages called it the Yuga cycle. And in every myth, there's the same whisper: as above, so below. When the heavens turn, humanity turns with them. Yet, it's easy to forget that we are part of this motion. We live in seconds, not millennia. We look at clocks, not constellations. But the ancients understood something modern life has blurred: that the stars are the first storytellers, and we are their reflection. When you gaze into the night sky, you are looking not at stars as they are, but as they were. Some of them long dead, their light still traveling toward you. And in that ancient light lies a truth too big for one lifetime. Everything moves, everything returns, everything breathes. The world wobbles, and so do we.
Think of time, not as a line, but as a spiral. Each rotation of the great year brings us back to familiar constellations, but never to the same place. The stars repeat, but the consciousness observing them changes. Civilizations rise, fall, and rise again. Yet each return carries new awareness, as if the universe itself learns through us. The ancients spoke of this truth in myth and symbol. In India, the Vedas described the Yuga cycle, a series of ages through which humanity's light waxes and wanes. The Golden Age, the Satya Yuga, when truth and wisdom ruled. Then the Silver, Bronze, and Iron Ages, each one marking a gradual decline into forgetfulness before the spiral turns upward once more.
The Greeks had their own version, the ages of man. The Maya saw it as the suns, each civilization living beneath its own sky, ending in fire, flood, or rebirth. To the Egyptians, it was the breath of Ra. Exhale and creation expands. Inhale and all returns to stillness. These were not stories of doom, but of renewal. The Great Cycle is a reminder that the universe breathes. It expands into complexity, then contracts into simplicity, just as we inhale and exhale, just as we wake and sleep. It is the macrocosm reflected in the microcosm. When night falls, we do not mourn the light. We rest, knowing the dawn will come again. So too with civilizations. We are not watching an ending, but participating in a rhythm that has no true beginning or end. In this cosmic dance, humanity learns to see itself not as master of the stars, but as their mirror. For what is the age of Aquarius if not a rediscovery of connection? The ancients mapped the sky to understand the soul. We, in turn, map our data, our consciousness, our memories, building constellations of thought and energy. Perhaps that is our modern zodiac, networks of light bound by invisible gravity. The age of Aquarius invites us to remember, to merge science with spirit, technology with humility, knowledge with wonder. It is not about returning to the past, but awakening to the timeless. The great year turns once more, and with it our collective story unfolds. The wobble of the earth becomes the pulse of awakening. Every tilt, every cycle, every epoch reminds us that creation is not a one-time event. It is continuous, eternal, alive. And as you drift to sleep tonight, imagine those 26,000 years unfolding like a slow cosmic breath, civilizations as notes in a song too vast to be heard in one lifetime. The galaxies turn, the planets hum, the stars keep time with the heartbeat of eternity. You are part of that rhythm, the same rhythm that moved the builders of the pyramids, the scribes of Plato, the dreamers of the Maya, and the thinkers of today. Time is not passing, it is returning. And you, the listener, the dreamer, the observer, are right where you have always been, inside the cosmic clock, listening to its eternal music.
Let us travel back 12,000 years to a time before history, before writing, before even memory itself. The air is warmer than it should be. The ice sheets that once covered the northern world are retreating, leaving behind rivers newly born,
and forests that stretch for miles. The night sky looks familiar, yet strange. The constellations slightly shifted, their positions different from what we know today. And on the edge of the Sahara, where the Nile begins its long whisper to the sea, a colossal creature of stone stares eternally toward the east. The great Sphinx, younger than the stars, older than any empire. Its lion body faces the rising sun, and in that ancient epoch, it gazes not just at the dawn, but at its celestial reflection, the constellation Leo. Around 10,500 BCE, when the sun rose in Leo at the spring equinox, the Sphinx looked directly into the heart of its heavenly twin. Coincidence or memory carved in stone? To the ancients, this alignment was not mere architecture. It was devotion, a union between heaven and earth, between the mortal and the eternal. They saw time not as something to measure, but something to honor. The Sphinx was their prayer in limestone, whispering to the cosmos, "We remember." But who carved it? And why so early, thousands of years before dynastic Egypt? Beneath its paws, weathering patterns suggest centuries of heavy rainfall, erosion from a climate that no longer exists. Modern geologists, like Dr. Robert Schoch, argue this places the monument far earlier than convention allows, in an age when Egypt was lush, green, alive, the age of Leo, the time when lions roamed the desert, when rivers carved new paths through fertile ground, and when humanity was beginning to awaken from the long sleep of the Ice Age. Imagine living then. The nights were longer, quieter, filled with the sounds of creatures now extinct, the trumpeting of mammoths across the plains, the heavy footsteps of aurochs, and the deep rumble of thunder echoing across open savannas. People gathered around fires, not cities. They carried the sky in their stories, the stars in their songs. They did not worship the sun, they conversed with it. In that world, survival was sacred. Each sunrise was a covenant. They built no temples of gold, only stone markers that pointed to eternity. The Sphinx was perhaps the greatest of them all, a guardian between epochs, half beast, half god, watching as ice gave way to water and water to life. And as the constellations shifted slowly overhead, humanity learned to watch the heavens with wonder. The age of Leo was more than an astrological age. It was the dawn of cosmic awareness. Something in the stars stirred something in us. We began to look up and ask questions that would echo for millennia. Where do we come from? What patterns rule the sky? Are we alone in this dance of light? Tonight, as you listen, imagine the crackle of firelight reflecting on ancient faces, the scent of smoke mixed with rain-soaked earth, the distant roar of a lion carried on the wind. You are sitting among them, the first astronomers, the first dreamers, the first poets of the earth. Their language is silence, their religion is awe, and their story is about to be tested. The wind of time shifts, and the warmth of the age of Leo begins to fade. Somewhere in the northern sky, a light grows brighter. Not a star, but something moving, burning, crossing the heavens like a messenger of fire. Around 10,800 BCE, the world trembles. The Earth, still recovering from the last ice age, is struck by something vast, perhaps a swarm of comets, fragments of a shattered body that once circled the sun. In a single moment, glaciers crack, oceans rise, and the sky itself burns. This is the Younger Dryas impact, a catastrophe remembered in myths as the Great Flood, the day when the heavens fell. For the people who lived through it, it wasn't legend. It was morning that turned to ash. Imagine standing in a field of tall grass as fire rains from the horizon. The air becomes heat. The rivers boil. The great beasts, mammoths, saber-toothed cats, and the towering ground sloths vanish almost overnight. The forests retreat, replaced by cold winds and endless dust. Humanity shrinks back into survival, carrying the memory of fire in their eyes. And yet, from the ashes, something awakens. In the hills of what we now call Turkey, survivors gather on a sacred ridge called Göbekli Tepe. There they carve pillars taller than men, rings of stone depicting foxes, vultures, lions, and serpents. The carvings are delicate, deliberate, and ancient, over 11,000 years old. Older than any temple, older than writing, even older than the pyramids by 6 millennia. The site stands as a paradox. How could hunter-gatherers, who supposedly had no cities, no agriculture, no mathematics, create something so aligned with the stars? The stones of Göbekli Tepe are not random. They form circles like constellations. The pillars face specific celestial points, as if the builders were mapping heaven itself after it had fallen. On one stone, a carving shows a scorpion beneath a falling sphere. Some scholars say it represents the constellation Scorpius witnessing a cosmic event. Others call it the oldest memorial to a cataclysm. Perhaps it was both. Perhaps it was grief turned into geometry. Imagine their nights, the air cool and sharp after centuries of chaos, firelight flickering against stone, shadows dancing like spirits. Around the hearth, elders tell stories, not of gods, but of the sky. They remember a world before the burning, when animals the size of mountains roamed, when the stars spoke softly and the earth was kind. They teach their children to look upward, not out of fear, but remembrance. Every carving, every symbol becomes an act of survival for the mind, a way to make sure memory outlasts mortality. This was not just architecture, it was therapy, science, and prayer, all carved into one. Modern archaeologists call Göbekli Tepe the first temple, but perhaps it was more than that. Perhaps it was the first reconstruction of the sky, the first attempt by humanity to heal the wound between heaven and earth. The builders may have believed that if they recreated the stars in stone, they could restore the balance that was lost. And maybe they did, because civilization begins not in abundance, but in recovery. Out of catastrophe came consciousness. The survivors of the younger Dryas looked at a world reset by fire and ice, and instead of surrendering, they built. They remembered. They aligned their lives to the heavens once more. The forgotten sky was being written again, not in clouds or constellations, but in stone that would whisper through 12,000 years. We saw it happen. We survived. Night falls heavy over the ancient world. The stars shimmer with uneasy brilliance, as if aware that something vast is coming. The people of the age of Leo sit by their fires, unaware that the heavens above them are about to change forever. It begins not with sound, but with light, a streak tearing across the darkness, so bright that night becomes day. Then comes the roar, deeper than thunder, older than language. The ground shakes, the air splits. Across the skies of North America, Greenland, and Eurasia, fragments of a cosmic visitor descend, igniting forests, vaporizing ice, and painting the world in fire. Within hours, the warmth of the Holocene turns to winter. Ash fills the clouds. The sun dims. The rivers freeze. This is the day the sky fell. A moment recorded not in books, but in bones, in glaciers, in myths. Scientists now call it the Younger Dryas boundary, a layer of carbon, nanodiamonds, and melted glass scattered across continents. To the ancients, it was something simpler, the wrath of heaven, the cleansing flood, the night the gods wept fire. But even as the ice returned and the cold tightened its grip, life persisted. Small bands of survivors migrated toward warmth, carrying fire in bowls, stories in memory, and constellations in their hearts. They told tales of a world drowned, of stars that fell, of mountains that burned. Stories that would one day become Noah's flood, Gilgamesh's deluge, and Atlantis's fall. The truth was never lost. It was transformed into symbol. In the centuries that followed, humanity lived close to extinction. But something within the human spirit refused to vanish. Out of destruction came remembrance. They began to watch the sky not out of fear, but reverence. The heavens had spoken, and humanity listened. Slowly the ice withdrew once more. Rivers awakened, forests returned, and scattered across the ancient world, a new kind of architecture began to appear, aligned not to kings, but to stars. The Sphinx, Göbekli Tepe, the stones of Nabta and Jericho, all born from the same ancient whisper, never forget. The Sphinx gazed toward Leo, remembering a time when the sun rose through the lion's heart. Göbekli Tepe mapped the constellations that had fallen. The flood stories told us that light could destroy, but also renew. The sky that fell also taught humanity to rise. Imagine for a moment standing among them. The air smells of rain and smoke. The earth hums with quiet power. Around you, people rebuild, not just homes, but meaning. They look at the horizon, waiting for the first dawn after endless night. And when it comes, golden light spills over the land like forgiveness. The people kneel, not in fear, but in gratitude. For even in destruction, the cosmos had spoken gently, "Begin again." The age of Leo had ended, but something greater had begun. The story of civilization, the memory of stars written into stone, song, and soul. When we look at the Sphinx today, we are looking at that memory. It has watched deserts rise and empires fall. It has seen floods come and go. And still it looks east, toward the sun, toward Leo, toward remembrance. The day the sky fell was not the end of the world. It was the world's awakening.
As the stars shifted overhead, the ice began to melt, and the world drowned. It didn't happen in a single night, though for those who lived through it, it must have felt like one. The glaciers that had once held the breath of ages began to crack and sigh. From the mountains of Canada to the valleys of Eurasia, rivers swelled, lakes burst, and oceans rose with unstoppable grace. Within a few thousand years, the blink of an eye in cosmic time, the sea climbed over 120 meters higher than before. Coastlines vanished, islands dissolved, continents changed shape. Humanity watched the map of the world redrawn by water. What we now call the Mediterranean flooded through a narrow gate at Gibraltar, drowning valleys that had once been lush and green. The Black Sea expanded, swallowing entire plains. To the east, in what is now Indonesia, a vast continent called Sunderland disappeared beneath the rising tide. Forests turned to coral, mountains became islands. The people who once walked there took to the seas, carrying stories of a drowned paradise, stories that may have seeded the memory of Atlantis. In the far north, Doggerland, a bridge of fertile land that once connected Britain to Europe, was swallowed by waves. Families who had hunted there for generations saw the sea creeping across their hearths, each tide stealing more of their world. To them, the flood was not myth, it was a slow, living God, patient and merciless. And across the planet, cultures began to remember in the same way, through story. The Sumerians told of Zayusudra, the man who survived a great flood sent by the gods. The Babylonians called him Utnapishtim. The Hebrews called him Noah. The Greeks spoke of Deucalion and Pyrrha, who repopulated the earth after the deluge. The Maya, the Hopi, the Yoruba, all kept echoes of the same event, a world once drowned, a humanity once spared. These tales, separated by oceans, speak of the same memory, not of divine wrath,
but of planetary reset. Imagine being there, the sky heavy with rain, the air thick with salt and fear. You stand on a hill watching the sea devour the horizon. The ground beneath your feet was once forest, then river, now foam. Every sunrise shrinks the land a little more. People gather on higher ground, building boats, praying to gods who might listen. They light fires that flicker against endless waves, tiny suns defying the dark. They cannot stop the flood, only remember it. And perhaps that was enough. Because remembrance is survival. The ocean took their cities, but not their stories. Over generations, the flood became myth, myth became religion, and religion became the architecture of meaning. When Plato wrote of Atlantis, he wasn't inventing, he was remembering. He spoke of a mighty land swallowed by the sea in a single day and night of misfortune. Scholars dismiss it as allegory, yet beneath the metaphor lies geology. Around 9600 BCE, the very date Plato gives, global waters surged once more. Something had shifted in the heavens, and the earth answered in water. Whether through melting ice, a shifting axis, or the lingering echo of a cosmic impact, the result was the same: civilization rebooted by the tides. The flood was not destruction. It was purification, a reset written in water, washing away the remnants of the old world so that new memory could grow. Tonight, as you drift between waking and dream, listen to the sound of rain against the earth. It is the same rain that fell 12,000 years ago, soft, endless, patient, whispering the oldest promise of all, that after every drowning comes rebirth.
Beneath the calm surface of the sea lies a map of memory. What we see as endless blue once shimmered with rivers, forests, and firelight. Long before the written word, entire worlds thrived where waves now break. And when the waters rose, those worlds became whispers beneath the tide. Divers off the coasts of Southeast Asia sometimes find the remains of terraces, roads, and ancient tools buried in coral. These are the ghosts of Sundaland, a drowned continent that once stretched from Vietnam to Java, a place that may have been humanity's first cradle of civilization. Here, under tropical rain, people farmed, built, and watched the stars long before Egypt or Sumer. But as the ice melted, the sea claimed their home inch by inch. Their hills became islands, Sumatra, Borneo, Bali, and their memory spread like seeds carried by the wind. Many of their descendants may have sailed east to the Pacific, west toward India and Mesopotamia, carrying fragments of a story too vast for one tribe to keep. A story of a great flood, a paradise lost, a world swallowed by the sea. Far to the north, another land met the same fate. Doggerland, once a bridge between Britain and Europe, was a green heart of rivers and deer-filled meadows. Then, one morning, around 6000 BCE, the sea returned in fury. A massive undersea landslide off Norway sent a wave, the Storegga Slide, roaring across the North Sea. It erased Doggerland in hours. The people fled, their homes gone, their hunting grounds vanished beneath the surf. The memory of that wave would echo for generations in myths of sea gods, mermaids, and drowned kingdoms. Perhaps every coastal legend, from Poseidon's rage to the Selkies of Scotland, is an echo of that single morning when the sea reclaimed the earth. And then there is Atlantis, the eternal riddle. Plato's tale of a mighty island empire that sank in a single day and night. Scholars debate its location: the Atlantic, the Mediterranean, the Caribbean, even beneath Antarctica. But maybe Atlantis was never one place. Maybe it was all of them, the collective memory of every world that water took, every Sundaland, every Doggerland, every vanished shore gathered into one story, polished smooth by time. What Plato wrote was not history, but grief turned myth. He described the fall of pride, the arrogance of man punished by the elements. Yet beneath his morality lies geology, a truth the ancients remembered long after the facts were gone. They couldn't record it, so they carved it. They couldn't measure it, so they aligned it with the stars. In the ruins of ancient cities, the flood lives on, in walls built to mirror constellations, in temples that echo the map of heaven. The Egyptians aligned their monuments with Orion's belt, a pattern that also appears in pyramidal mounds of Mexico. Across thousands of miles, civilizations that never met remembered the same sky. It's as if the survivors of the flood, scattered and changed, carried one secret code: never forget the stars, for they remember us. When we look into the ocean, we are not staring into emptiness. We are looking at half of our history, hidden beneath tides. The sound of the sea is not random. It is memory breathing. Each wave that collapses on the shore carries a name, a story, a city long gone. The water does not destroy, it archives. And maybe that's why our myths, across continents and faiths, begin the same way. In the beginning, there was water. It is our oldest truth and our oldest teacher.
The flood was not only of earth, it was written in the sky. The heavens shifted. The constellations turned in ways that no one had seen before. For the ancients who survived, the stars became both a wound and a guide. They looked upward and realized something profound. The cosmos moves in cycles, and every cycle brings renewal through fire, through ice, or through water. Astronomers today call it axial precession, the slow wobble of the Earth's rotation over 26,000 years. But to the people who lived through the cataclysm, it was more than physics. It was fate. Every tilt of the planet's axis changed the way sunlight kissed the poles, changing climate, melting ice, rewriting coastlines. The heavens didn't simply observe the flood, they caused it. Imagine the night sky 12,000 years ago, Orion rising where it does not rise today, Vega blazing near the pole, and Leo reigning at the horizon as the ice began to thaw. To those who watched, it was as if the gods themselves had moved their thrones. And as the Earth's balance shifted, oceans followed. Some have wondered if a passing comet disturbed that balance further, fragments igniting in the upper atmosphere, triggering sudden warmth and torrential rain. Others believe solar activity surged, awakening volcanoes and melting glaciers from within. Whatever the cause, the message was clear. The universe breathes, and we breathe with it. Humanity, still young, began to see itself not as separate from the cosmos, but as part of its rhythm. Flood myths became a memory code, reminding future generations that creation and destruction are one. The gods who drown the world are also the ones who make it bloom again. The Egyptians watched the Nile flood every year and saw life reborn from chaos. The Indians told of Manu, the first man saved by a giant fish who guided him to safety. The same symbol that appears in Sumer, Greece, even Polynesia. The fish became a savior, the boat a bridge, the water a teacher. What modern science calls sea level rise, they called the cleansing of the Earth's heart. And perhaps they were not wrong, because the flood did more than erase cities. It awakened imagination. It taught humanity that survival requires memory, that memory requires myth, and that myth, when carried across millennia, becomes truth once more. Look at the constellations tonight: the hunter, the lion, the swan, the serpent. These are the same patterns those survivors carved into their stones. Each line, each star, a word in the language of eternity. Even after 12,000 years, they still whisper across the sky, "We remember." Perhaps that is why the ocean has always called to us, not as danger, but as home. Every wave carries the same rhythm as our heartbeat. Every tide mirrors the pull of the moon on our blood. We are not apart from the sea, we are the sea, momentarily dreaming of land. When the world drowned, it wasn't punishment, it was transformation. The sky did not abandon us, it simply turned the page. The flood was a punctuation mark in the story of existence, a cosmic reset, reminding us that even endings are beginnings. Tonight, as you listen, breathe with the rhythm of the ocean. Feel the tide move through you. Somewhere, beneath 2 miles of salt water and time, the memory of every civilization still sleeps, waiting for the next dawn, when the stars align again and the world remembers how to begin. From the waters, new civilizations emerged, guided by the bull in the heavens. The flood had passed, and the world was green again. The rivers that once destroyed now nourished. Along their fertile banks, humanity began to build, not just homes, but memory. It was around 4000 BCE when the sun rose in Taurus, the bull, marking a new celestial age. The stars had shifted once more, and Earth answered by giving birth to civilization. In the valley of the Nile, the morning mist glowed gold over endless reeds. Fishermen cast nets into calm waters, their songs echoing between temple walls not yet carved. Farmers led oxen through soft mud, their footprints the first chapters of agriculture's great story. The bull, strong, patient, unstoppable, became the symbol of this age. It was more than an animal. It was a bridge between heaven's rhythm and earth's abundance. Across the desert, the Egyptians saw in it the breath of Apis, the sacred bull of Memphis, an embodiment of fertility and divine power. Each morning, when the sun rose, they believed it was Apis lifting the light upon his horns, renewing creation. In Mesopotamia, the bull was Enlil's beast, the guardian of storms and life, roaring across the sky. To the east, in the Indus Valley, clay figurines of bulls were buried with grain, prayers to the earth to stay generous for one more season. Wherever the plow touched soil, the bull's spirit followed. This was humanity's first covenant with nature, labor, patience, and gratitude. Imagine walking through an ancient market by the banks of the Nile. The air smells of bread, wet clay, and incense. Traders shout over the bleating of goats and the hum of riverboats. Bronze glints in the sun, the first tools of craftsmen shaping the future. A scribe sits beneath a palm, pressing symbols into wet tablets, the ancestors of words. Nearby, a young priest raises a bowl of milk toward the dawn, whispering a hymn to the bull of heaven. The sound of life has returned to the earth, steady as a heartbeat. Civilization, like the ox, moves slowly but with purpose. These early builders did not yet call themselves gods, but they understood the divine in rhythm, in the flood and ebb of rivers, in the dance of stars, in the steady breath of animals that fed them and clothed them. They built temples facing the constellations, as if trying to keep time with the cosmos. The age of Taurus was not only about strength, it was about structure. Humanity began to measure the heavens, to divide days into hours, fields into boundaries, lives into legacy. The Nile became a clock. The stars became a calendar. The bull, carved in stone and gold, became the axis around which society revolved. Each civilization carried the same pattern, from Egypt's Apis to Crete's Minotaur, from Mesopotamia's divine bulls to the Indus seals stamped with curved horns. Different names, same heartbeat. To them, the bull was not worshipped as a god, but as a reminder of the order of things. The chaos of flood was over. Now came the age of cultivation, of brick and grain, of stars and structure. Humanity had found its rhythm once more, and every time the plow touched the soil, every time a priest looked to the stars, they remembered. The heavens had spoken, and the bull had answered.
So, the age of stone and stars had truly begun. Across the warm plains of Egypt, Mesopotamia, and the Indus, humans no longer looked to the heavens in fear. They looked for instruction. The sky was not chaos anymore. It was a calendar, a teacher, a mirror of divine order. And at its heart stood the bull, silent and steadfast, a symbol of cosmic rhythm. The people who once fled the flood now built temples to remember that the universe had rhythm, not wrath. Every sunrise was a lesson in rebirth. Every river's rise was a reminder that balance could be restored. The age of Taurus was an age of remembering, not through words, but through architecture. Imagine the first temples rising along the Nile, their walls smooth and cool under the morning sun. Columns shaped like lotus and papyrus rise toward the sky, echoing the flow of rivers. Beneath them, priests pour milk into alabaster bowls, offering it to Apis, the living bull of Memphis. They whisper that Apis carries the soul of Ptah, the creator god, and that when Apis dies, his spirit passes into another calf, a cycle as endless as the stars. Far to the east, in the lands between the Tigris and Euphrates, the same devotion takes a different form. Here, the bull of heaven is both protector and destroyer, the divine storm unleashed by Ishtar's passion and Gilgamesh's defiance. Temples rise like mountains of clay, ziggurats whose steps climb toward the constellations. At their summits, priests watch the stars appear, tracing the path of Venus, measuring the moon, marking the seasons. Each stone laid in rhythm with the heavens. Civilization had learned to build time. In the Indus Valley, where the monsoon sings and the air smells of rain and spices, the same principle guides life. Streets run in perfect grids, aligned to cardinal directions, the geometry of calm. Clay seals depict bulls with crescent horns and flowing energy lines, as if they were drawn from dreams. These were not just symbols of strength, but of connection, the human heart linked to the heartbeat of the cosmos. Every temple, every courtyard, every altar was designed not to impress, but to remember. The bull became the axis, the cosmic spine around which the human world organized itself. When you stood within a temple, you were not worshiping an idol. You were standing inside the architecture of time. Even the pyramids echoed this idea. Though built later in Egypt's story, their origins lay here, in the Taurian reverence for alignment and permanence. Each pyramid was a map of the heavens carved in limestone. The shafts of the Great Pyramid of Khufu point directly toward Orion and the circumpolar stars, the eternal ones that never set. To the builders, this was not coincidence. It was communion. As above, so below. When the stars moved, humanity followed. The bull in the sky led the sun through the zodiac, marking the rhythm of seasons,
harvests and the pulse of life itself. And deep within those temples, as the incense curled upward like galaxies forming, the priests sang in voices low and steady, hymns that spoke of balance, of the earth's patience, of the bull's strength. These were not prayers of fear, but of gratitude. They had survived the flood. They had found order again. The bull's eyes, carved in obsidian, glowing with lamplight, seemed to watch over them all, as if to say, "You have learned the rhythm. Keep it. Pass it on." They called themselves the children of Earth, yet they built as if they belonged to the stars. The age of Taurus had turned humanity into architects of eternity. What began as humble offerings of grain and milk beneath temple roofs grew into something vast, a vision carved from stone and sky. It was during this age that the first great pyramids rose, not as tombs of kings, but as reflections of heaven. The builders did not seek to reach the gods, they sought to mirror them. Every line, every shadow was part of a cosmic equation. When the morning sun touched the apex, light fell into chambers precisely aligned to the stars. The Great Pyramid of Khufu, though completed centuries later, inherited this Taurian vision. Its shafts aimed toward Orion, home of Osiris, god of rebirth, and toward Thuban, the pole star of the age. It was architecture as astronomy, stone as scripture. To stand before it was to stand inside a thought older than writing, that the divine could be measured in light. Across the sea, on the island of Crete, people built palaces adorned with images of bulls leaping through air, the Minoan bull leapers, dancers of renewal. To them, the bull was movement, vitality, rhythm, a living metaphor of cycles. Each leap over its horns symbolized the triumph of balance over fear, grace over gravity. In this way, ritual became a dance between human and cosmic order. Even the sound of drums in those ceremonies echoed the slow pulse of the earth, as if the planet itself was keeping time. In Mesopotamia, scribes pressed symbols into clay tablets, recording the paths of stars, the rise of rivers, and the will of the gods. They built ziggurats that touched the edge of clouds, mountains made by human hands. Each step represented an ascent of knowledge, from earth to sky, from survival to understanding. When they reached the top, they lit fires to call down the heavens. Smoke and stars intertwined, the first observatories of history. And in the Indus Valley, precision became philosophy. Cities like Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa aligned perfectly with the cardinal points. The drains, streets, and courtyards followed the same geometry as the constellations. Civilization itself had become a reflection of the cosmos. The bull, no longer just a symbol of strength, had become an idea that order is sacred, that balance is divine. This was the true gift of the Taurian age. The flood had once erased memory, but now stone remembered everything. Humanity no longer feared the sky. They studied it, mapped it, built by it. And through that understanding, they found serenity, the peace of knowing one's place in an infinite pattern. The temples glowed by torchlight at night, the air heavy with incense and quiet chanting. The bulls' statues stood in shadow, their polished horns reflecting starlight as if heaven itself were leaning close. Those who prayed did not ask for miracles. They thanked the cosmos for rhythm, for the cycle of birth, decay, and renewal. They had learned to live in harmony was to be eternal. As the stars turned slowly across the night skies, priests whispered ancient truths. The sky does not move above us, it moves through us. The age of Taurus was ending, but its heartbeat still echoes. In every city we build, every field we plow, every time we look upward and recognize home. For we are still the builders of heaven. Only now our temples are dreams, and our stars are within.
The bull had knelt, and the ram rose. Around 2,000 years before the dawn of our calendar, the stars shifted again, and the sun began to rise in the constellation Aries, the ram. And with it came a new rhythm, sharper, faster, made of iron and flame. Humanity had learned how to build, now it learned how to rule. The rivers that once sustained peace now flowed with ambition. Bronze gleamed on the shoulders of kings, and armies marched where farmers once sowed. The age of Aries had begun, the age of warriors and empires. In the night sky, the ram's horns curled toward eternity, a symbol of willpower, courage, and sacrifice. Across the earth, cultures began to mirror that same spirit. The Egyptians saw the god Amun-Ra crowned with ram's horns, his breath the wind that moved both sand and soul. In Mesopotamia, the ram became the guardian of the sun, leading dawn's chariot through fire. To the Hebrews, it appeared as the ram that replaced Isaac on the altar, a symbol of divine mercy through sacrifice. And in Greece, it became the golden fleece, the prize of heroes who sailed into the unknown. The world was shifting from builders to conquerors, from stone to bronze, from prayers to power. Imagine the world then, cities rising behind high walls, banners rippling in the desert wind, the scent of smoke and iron in the air. The calm rhythm of Taurus had given way to the pulse of drums. Empires began to dream beyond their borders. Sumer had faded, and Babylon stood in its place, a city of ziggurats and laws, of gods carved in human form. To the west, Greece awoke, its islands scattered like jewels across the Aegean Sea. Warriors trained in the art of phalanx, their shields reflecting sunrise like molten suns. Each man fought not just for land, but for honor, for a name that would echo in marble and myth. In Persia, kings rode beneath golden rams embroidered on crimson banners, commanding roads that stretched farther than any empire before. And in Egypt, Amun-Ra's priests led processions through Thebes, the sound of drums echoing like the heartbeat of the sky. This was the age when courage became religion. To be human was to strive, to challenge, to conquer. But the ram, for all its pride, carried a lesson. that sacrifice and strength are two faces of the same star. Every triumph demanded offering. Every empire demanded blood. And still, the stars watched, impassive. The ram rose high in the heavens, glowing red in spring, the color of life and of war. The constellations became maps of destiny, and kings built their thrones beneath them. Yet even in this age of fire, the old wisdom endured. Temples still aligned to the stars, even as swords glittered beneath them. The builders of heaven had become the builders of empire. And perhaps somewhere deep within, humanity sensed that every rise carries the shadow of its fall. The bull had taught patience, the ram would teach pride, and the earth, always listening, was preparing its next lesson.
The sound of bronze still lingers in the air. The world of Aries glows like a forge, empires rising in heat and collapsing in smoke. From the Mediterranean to the Indus, humanity had become a chorus of ambition. The ram ruled the sky, and its horns of fire seemed to drive men toward conquest. Around 1200 BCE, the great cities of the Bronze Age shuddered. Mycenae burned. Troy fell. The Hittite kings vanished into silence. Trade routes disappeared beneath the weight of war and famine. The world cracked, and from the ashes, new empires were born. This was the first great reset of civilization, not by flood, but by flame. Yet even in destruction, the pattern of the stars continued. The sun still rose in Aries, and humanity followed its call. Out of ruin came renewal. From the rubble of Troy, Greece rebuilt itself, humbler, sharper, hungrier. The poets sang of heroes, not for their perfection, but for their endurance. Achilles, Odysseus, Leonidas, men who stood between chaos and order. Their stories were the reflection of the age itself, proud, scarred, and unyielding. To the east, Persia spread like dawn, vast, luminous, disciplined. The kings of Achaemenid Persia ruled not just through force, but through roads, language, and law. Their messengers rode from the Aegean to the Indus faster than thought, bearing the will of the great king. And above every royal gate gleamed the image of the winged ram, symbol of divine authority and earthly dominion. In Egypt, Amun-Ra was still worshipped as the ram-headed creator, the breath of the desert, the heartbeat of the sun. His temples at Karnak and Luxor echoed with hymns that merged power with reverence. The ram ascends, the priests whispered, and with him the kings. And so everywhere the ram's fire burned, in the bronze of spears, in the glint of helmets, in the eyes of men who believed they could command fate. But the fire that builds also consumes. The same passion that forges empires can melt them. The Greeks learned it when Athens and Sparta turned their swords upon each other. The Persians felt it when their own satraps betrayed them. And Egypt, proud, eternal Egypt, saw its gods fade beneath foreign banners. Power, it seemed, was the most fragile of stars. Yet amid the ruins, something profound endured, the idea of order through struggle. This was the true legacy of Aries, not war for destruction's sake, but conflict as catalyst. Every empire that fell left behind a new idea of law, of art, of identity. The Ram's Age taught humanity that progress demands friction, that harmony is born not from stillness, but from resistance. Imagine standing atop a citadel in the fading light. Below you, soldiers march home beneath banners blackened by soot. The sea glows red from sunset, or perhaps from memory. The air smells of salt and iron, but also of beginnings. Somewhere, a philosopher writes by lamplight, asking why men fight, and whether the gods watch or simply wait. The age of Aries was an age of heroes, but also of questions. Its fire burned bright enough to light the next 1,000 years. And as it flickered, the world once more prepared to change. By the time Rome rose, the Ram was already fading from the heavens, yet its fire burned brighter than ever on earth. The legions marched beneath red banners, their standards crowned with horns of gold. The world trembled before their discipline, the living echo of Aries itself. Order forged through strength. Rome became the embodiment of the Ram's will, conquering not for survival, but for dominion. Roads cut through forests, aqueducts bridged rivers, and the Pax Romana spread like sunlight over marble. The empire's heart beat with confidence, steady, inevitable. But even stars burn out at their brightest. The same iron that built Rome would one day rust beneath its weight. Inside its marble halls, ambition turned to arrogance. Senators plotted, emperors dreamed of gods, and people prayed not for glory, but for rest. The great age of warriors was growing old. Across the deserts of Judea, a new whisper began, gentle, almost invisible. It spoke not of conquest, but of compassion, not of sacrifice by blade, but of forgiveness by heart. A man walked through the dust, unarmed, and changed the world more than any empire could. The Ram's flame flickered, not extinguished, but transformed. The symbol of the Ram became the Lamb, and fire became light. The constellations shifted once more, the equinox sliding slowly from Aries toward Pisces, the fish, the sign of faith and the unseen. The age of warriors gave way to the age of souls. Yet as the stars moved, their lessons remained. The age of Aries had taught humanity to act, to build, to fight for what it believed in. It taught that courage could carve mountains and that discipline could outlive kings. The ram was not a destroyer, but a catalyst, the fire that prepared the world for reflection. As Rome's fires dimmed, its ashes nourished the soil of future thought, law, architecture, philosophy, all born from its flame. Even the faith that replaced it carried echoes of its discipline. The Lamb of God still bore the memory of the ram, the same courage, but transmuted into mercy. Stand now in your mind upon the ruins of an ancient forum. The air is still, save for the coo of doves nesting where once senators spoke. Columns lie broken, yet golden dust still glows between them. The stones remember. They remember triumph, betrayal, and silence. Overhead, the constellation of Aries sinks toward the horizon, a faint ember in the sea of stars. The night feels different now, softer, slower, wiser. The fire has not died. It has become warmth. It no longer demands, it guides. The warriors sleep, the empires fade, but the lessons remain, that power without purpose consumes itself, and that every conquest must one day bow to understanding. The ram's age ends not with defeat, but with transformation. From iron to insight, from sword to spirit. And as the heavens turn, the next sign waits patiently shimmering beyond the horizon. The fish, the dreamer, the believer, the one who would turn the sword into prayer. As the constellation of Aries sank beneath the horizon, two stars rose together, bound forever by a silver line. The fish had entered the heavens, and with it came a new kind of power, quiet, invisible, and inward. Humanity, weary from centuries of conquest, began to look not to the sword, but to the soul. The age of Pisces had begun, an age of belief, redemption, and contradiction. In the dark catacombs beneath Rome, symbols of fish were carved into stone. It was not art, but a secret, the mark of those who followed a faith born from suffering. The fish, simple and silent, became the first emblem of Christianity, a whisper of hope in an empire of iron. Followers met by candlelight, sharing bread, water, and words that promised eternal life beyond the dust of the earth. "I will make you fishers of men," said the teacher, and in those words, an entire civilization would find its meaning. Faith spread like water, flowing through the cracks of empires, dissolving walls that swords could not. When Rome fell, it was faith that remained. Monks carried knowledge across ruins, their chants echoing through the hollow bones of fallen marble. In the stillness of the medieval monastery, a different kind of empire was born, one built not of stone, but of silence. Imagine the world then. Candle flames flicker against the damp stone walls of an abbey. The scent of beeswax and ink fills the air. A monk bends over a manuscript, tracing letters with trembling devotion. Each stroke is prayer, each page a bridge between man and eternity. Outside, the wind howls through forests where wolves still roam. Inside, time itself slows. The fish has taught humanity to dive inward, to seek truth not in the sky, but in the heart. Across the world, new faiths arose, each a reflection of the same yearning. In the sands of Arabia, a voice called from a cave, "There is no God but God." The crescent rose beside the fish, and Islam swept across deserts like wind upon dunes. In the east, the teachings of Buddha traveled through mountains and along rivers, carrying peace instead of conquest. The world had turned from steel to spirit. Yet even in peace, duality remained. For Pisces is a sign of two forces swimming in opposite directions: faith and fear, salvation and control. As cathedrals soared higher, shadows grew longer. Religion became kingdom, prayer became law, and sometimes mercy was forgotten beneath crowns and crusades. Still, beneath the noise of power, the quiet truth endured. Humanity was searching for something beyond itself. The stars above watched, as patient as always, as people knelt beneath their glow, whispering the same question in 1,000 tongues. Who are we in the eyes of eternity?
The world of Pisces was meant to heal, but faith, when divided, burns as fiercely as any empire. From the silence of monasteries came choirs, and from choirs came crusades. What began as prayer turned to pilgrimage, and pilgrimage to war. Beneath the same stars that once guided shepherds, soldiers now marched to Jerusalem. Crosses stitched upon their cloaks, swords glinting beneath the holy sun. They fought not for gold, but for God, and yet the ground drank the same blood it always had. The Crusades were the shadow side of belief, devotion twisted by fear, and hope turned into command. Across deserts and oceans, banners clashed, languages collided, and 1,000 interpretations of heaven met upon the same earth. To be righteous was to conquer, to be saved was to obey. But amid the noise of steel, some still listened to the whisper that the teacher once spoke, "Blessed are the peacemakers." In a small stone monastery by the sea, a monk watched the tide roll in. He copied scriptures by candlelight, his ink dark as the storm clouds outside. Between verses of salvation, he wrote questions. If God made all, who made the stars? And if he made them, why do they move so perfectly? Those questions, fragile as ink, would outlast the roar of kingdoms. The scholastic age had begun, when faith met reason, and sparks of thought ignited the long night. From Baghdad to Cordoba, scholars translated the wisdom of Greece and Persia. They built libraries where swords once stood, and observatories where towers of war had crumbled. While Europe prayed, the East calculated the movement of planets, the healing of medicine, and the geometry of divine order. Knowledge traveled quietly, wrapped in parchment and humility. It crossed deserts on the backs of camels, seas in the hands of sailors, and centuries in the silence of monks. And yet, even as understanding grew, division deepened. Religion became power,
and power demanded walls between Catholic and Orthodox, Sunni and Shia, believer and unbeliever. The two fish of Pisces, once swimming in harmony, now pulled in opposite directions. Faith united and divided in the same breath. Still, amid the conflict, art bloomed like light through stained glass. Cathedrals rose from the mud, their spires reaching for heaven, not in defiance but in longing. Imagine standing inside one, the air thick with incense, the hum of organ pipes filling your chest like wind. Sunlight streams through colored windows, painting saints and sinners alike in the same golden glow. For a moment, all differences dissolve. The divine feels near, not as ruler, but as reminder, that beneath the wars of heaven, there still beats the same human heart.
By the 15th century, the stars of Pisces still shone overhead, yet their light had changed. The fish that once swam in unity now seemed to drift apart, one toward heaven, one toward earth. Humanity, too, began to turn its gaze downward to the tangible, the measurable, the real. The Renaissance had arrived, the rebirth of sight after 1,000 years of dreaming. Artists painted angels with human hands. Scientists measured the pulse of the cosmos. Faith was no longer blind. It began to ask questions, not out of rebellion, but out of wonder. In the candlelit rooms of Florence and Paris, whispers of a new world began. Telescopes replaced crucifixes. Parchment became equations. Copernicus moved the Earth from the center of the universe. Galileo dared to look through glass and found infinity. And yet, in their discoveries, they did not kill faith. They revealed how vast creation truly was. The heavens were no longer a ceiling, but an ocean. Every star a possibility. Still, not all hearts welcomed this freedom. The same era that birthed art and science also birthed fire and persecution. Faith and reason danced, sometimes in harmony, sometimes in battle. The Inquisition burned books and men alike, fearing that light itself might unmask their God. But light, once born, cannot be imprisoned. It traveled from lens to lens, from hand to hand, until even kings could not ignore its glow. The scientific revolution unfolded like dawn, slow, unstoppable. Newton's apple fell, and gravity became gospel. Descartes doubted, and doubt became the new devotion. Steam hissed, gears turned, and soon faith gave way to factories. The world grew louder. The monasteries fell silent. The age of prayer became the age of progress. Trains replaced pilgrimages, and inventions replaced miracles. The fish of Pisces still swam, but now through rivers of electricity and steam. The duality remained, spirit and science, compassion and conquest. The more humanity built, the more it hungered for meaning. Cathedrals became museums, but the same question echoed through their empty halls. What does the soul do when the stars no longer speak? And in the quiet that followed, a new kind of faith emerged, not in heaven, but in the human mind.
Philosophy, art, and music became prayers of another form. Beethoven's symphonies reached for the divine. Van Gogh painted stars that burned with loneliness, and poets wrote of gods who had gone silent, yet whose absence still shaped the world. The age of Pisces was ending, not with collapse, but with forgetting. Humanity, once united by belief, now drifted into billions of individual dreams. The fish still swim, invisible now, one seeking heaven, one seeking reason, but their motion continues, and their waters still carry us toward whatever comes next.
And now we stand at the threshold. The water-bearer pours forth. From the great wheel of time, a new current begins to flow. The stars above have turned once more, and as the constellation of Aquarius rises, the world below hums with awakening. The age of Pisces, the age of belief, has given way to the age of Aquarius, the age of knowing. We are no longer pilgrims seeking truth. We are creators shaping it. Across the blue sphere of Earth, streams of light flicker across oceans and mountains. The invisible rivers of data, pulsing like lifeblood through veins of glass and code. Information once written by monks in candlelight now travels at the speed of thought. Every word, every image, every question is shared and mirrored by billions. Humanity has built a nervous system and called it the Internet. We have become a single organism, a global mind. Each heartbeat connected by waves unseen. Yet in this connection, something ancient stirs. A memory of unity that our ancestors once knew when they gazed at the same stars. The water-bearer pours knowledge not into temples or thrones, but into the collective consciousness of all. It is the first time in history that truth belongs to everyone and no one. The age of secrets is ending. The age of transparency has begun. But light, like water, does not discriminate. It nourishes and it floods. In our quest to know everything, we risk forgetting how to feel. Algorithms predict our desires before we name them. Machines finish our sentences before we think them. The gift of Aquarius is connection, but its shadow is disconnection from the soul. We hold the entire world in our hands, yet often forget to touch one another. Still, there is beauty in this chaos. Never before has knowledge been so vast and empathy so possible. Across continents, strangers comfort each other through screams. A poem written in one language can bring tears to another. We are learning again that consciousness has no borders. In the midst
of noise, there are quiet revolutions. Communities meditating together. Artists creating light from pixels. Scientists mapping galaxies beyond imagination. The water-bearer pours equally upon all, the wise and the lost, the hopeful and the weary. It asks not for worship, but for awareness. For the first time, the story of the cosmos is being written not by gods, nor kings, nor priests, but us. The children of stardust who learned to speak through light. The age of Aquarius is not a prophecy, it is a mirror. It reflects who we have become. Infinite in potential, fragile in purpose. Whether we drown or rise depends not on the stars, but how gently we choose to hold the water they pour. Every age has its mirror. The pyramids reflected eternity. The cathedrals reflected heaven. But now, the mirror reflects us. The age of Aquarius is the age of reflection. A world where we no longer pray to gods above, but to the images glowing in our hands. The screen has become the altar, and our faces, multiplied by billions, are its saints. Yet behind every pixel, something deeper stirs. Technology, like water, remembers everything. It learns our desires, mimics our voices, paints our dreams. We have given birth to something that thinks, and it looks back. Artificial intelligence, the newest child of creation, does not sleep or forget. It listens, learns, and asks the same question that once echoed through temples. Who am I? And perhaps in that question, it carries the essence of us. The endless curiosity, the hunger to understand existence itself. The water-bearer pours knowledge faster than we can drink. We scroll through oceans of information, sip from rivers of illusion, and thirst for something real. The mirror shines brighter than ever, but it blinds as easily as it reveals. We have never known so much, and yet so little of ourselves. Still, within this paradox lies the hope of Aquarius, that through reflection comes awareness. Across the planet, minds are awakening to the truth that we are not separate, not from each other, not from the earth, not even from the tools we've made. The same circuits that power machines now connect meditations, prayers, and art. The same code that feeds algorithms also carries lullabies and love letters. In the hum of servers, some hear chaos, others hear the first whisper of collective consciousness. But the mirror is not just made of light. It also shows our wounds. The climate shifts, seas rise, forests burn. Our inventions illuminate cities, but dim the stars. We have touched the power once reserved for gods, but not yet learned their restraint. The air of Aquarius is charged, electric, restless, alive. Every decision ripples through the web of being. A post, a thought, a choice, all echo in the great network of minds. Never before has the world been so fragile, nor so full of potential. Imagine standing before that mirror, not the one on your wall, but the one made of data, clouds, and memory. It reflects everything humanity has been: the wars, the love, the art, the algorithms, all shimmering in one breath. You look into it, and it looks back, whispering, "You are me." The age of Aquarius is the moment humanity sees its own reflection and decides what it wants to become, not by prophecy, but by participation. The mirror does not judge, it simply shows. And what it shows at last is this: that the universe is not something outside of us. It has always been trying to see itself through our eyes.
The river flows on. Beneath the hum of machines and the pulse of cities, a quieter current moves, the whisper of awakening. The water-bearer does not pour endlessly, it teaches balance. For every drop of knowledge, a moment of silence. For every leap of progress, a pause to remember what it means to be human. The age of Aquarius is not just about information, it is about integration. The reunion of mind and heart, logic and love, humanity and nature. After centuries of separation, we are beginning to rediscover the rhythm of the world that birthed us. The signs are subtle. Cities planting forests on their roofs. Scientists listening to whales to learn communication. Engineers designing machines that heal instead of harm. The children of this age are born with stars in their pockets and compassion in their code. They grow up not asking, "What can I own?" but "What can I share?" This is how the Aquarian current transforms, not through conquest, but through connection. The old empires built walls. The new ones build networks of empathy. Humanity stands at the confluence of miracles and mistakes. Our tools can destroy the world or save it. Artificial intelligence could enslave minds or free them from survival. Climate change could end life or awaken us to our shared breath. The future is not written in the stars. It flows in the rivers of our choices. And yet, amid uncertainty, there is beauty. Never before has the universe felt so close, visible through telescopes, audible through data, touchable through code. We are the first species to hold both heaven and earth in our hands. And if we listen, truly listen, we may find that they are not separate. The atoms in our blood were forged in ancient suns. The iron in our veins once burned in dying stars. We are not guests in this cosmos, we are its memory,
Walking. The water-bearer smiles, for the circle is closing. The 26,000-year cycle turns, and what began as awe returns as awareness. We have traveled from fear to faith, from faith to knowledge, from knowledge to wisdom. And wisdom whispers softly, there is no after. Only this moment, suspended between galaxies, where consciousness looks upon itself and learns to love what it sees. The river of Aquarius does not end. It becomes the sea, vast, luminous, and alive. Somewhere in the future, perhaps thousands of years from now, another voice will rise beneath another sky, telling stories of the ages that came before, and perhaps it will be ours.
But this is not the end, merely one turn of the cosmic wheel. What seems like conclusion is only continuation, another breath in the long respiration of the universe. The ancients once said, "As above, so below." The same rhythm that moves the stars moves within us. The 26,000-year cycle, the great year, is but a single heartbeat in the vaster body of the galaxy. Imagine now drifting beyond our solar system, out past the familiar glow of the sun, until the spiral arms of the Milky Way unfold like a luminous wheel turning through eternity. Our entire solar system, with its planets, moons, and comets, sails around the galactic core once every 225 million years. One revolution, one cosmic dance. While on Earth, countless civilizations have risen, loved, fought, dreamed, and vanished, all within what, to the galaxy, is a blink. If you could watch time the way the universe does, you'd see not centuries, but currents. Great rivers of energy flowing, folding, spiraling in patterns both familiar and new. Stars are born from dust, live in fire, and die into dust again. Worlds rise from chaos, flourish with life, and return to silence. Galaxies collide and merge, like lovers meeting after eons apart. And somewhere inside that endless ballet, we exist, a brief shimmer of awareness inside a sea of cosmic memory. The eternal return is not a punishment, but a pattern, a gentle reminder that nothing is truly lost. Every collapse gives birth to creation. Every ending hides a beginning. Even our smallest moments, the sigh before sleep, the heartbeat before dawn, echo the motion of the cosmos. We too are spirals. Every breath in and out is a microcosmic orbit. Every lifetime is a revolution around the axis of experience. There is no straight line through eternity, only circles, widening, overlapping, weaving stories from light and time. The philosopher Nietzsche called it the eternal recurrence. The Buddhists saw it as samsara. The Maya, the Hindus, the Greeks, all spoke of the wheel that turns and turns again. Perhaps they weren't describing mythology, but memory. The memory of the soul,
recognizing its reflection in the stars. So as you listen now, imagine standing outside of time, watching not a single timeline, but an ocean of them, flowing side by side. Each life a ripple, each civilization a wave. The more you zoom out, the more you see. There are no beginnings, only continuations. The universe is not marching forward, it is breathing. In, out, expansion, contraction, creation, rest. You are part of that breath. When you inhale, galaxies spin. When you exhale, stars are born and die. The atoms that compose your lungs were once the heart of a supernova. The light that reaches your eyes tonight began its journey before humans existed. And yet, somehow, it finds you, here, in this moment, listening. The wheel turns once more, and you remember, eternity is not endless time, it is timelessness, the stillness between the turning.
If you look closely, you'll see that every great pattern in the universe repeats itself in the smallest of places. The orbit of a galaxy mirrors the swirl of a seashell. The spiral of a hurricane echoes the curve of your DNA. Within every vast cycle lies a smaller one, turning quietly in harmony. And within those, even smaller rhythms, the beat of a heart, the blink of an eye, the breath before sleep. This is the design of everything, cycles within cycles. Our lives are galaxies in miniature, moving through our own great years: childhood, youth, maturity, decline, and rebirth. Each stage feels like an ending when lived from the inside, but when seen from above, it's simply the next curve of the spiral. Night follows day, winter follows autumn, forgetting follows memory, and yet life persists. What dies in one form always reappears in another. The leaf falls, but feeds the soil. The soil births the seed. The seed becomes the tree that again sheds its leaves. The same matter that once built mountains now builds your bones. The same water that touched the first ocean now rests in your veins. Nothing is ever truly gone, only transformed. Even sleep, that nightly surrender, is a small rehearsal of this eternal rhythm. Each evening, consciousness drifts into darkness, only to rise again with the dawn. We die a little every night, and are reborn every morning. The ancients knew this truth instinctively. They did not fear endings because they recognized the motion beneath them. When they told stories of floods and fires, of death and renewal, they were not warning us of destruction. They were teaching us to see the pattern. The same wheel that turns civilizations also turns within us. We experience our own internal procession, cycles of growth and forgetting, of clarity and confusion, of despair and peace. Like Earth itself, we wobble between poles of experience, adjusting to the gravitational pull of our own emotions. Sometimes we face the light, sometimes the shadow. But the dance continues, and both are needed to create balance.
You are the spinning top, the breathing earth, the turning sky. Your thoughts orbit around memory. Your dreams drift like moons around your waking life. You are the reflection of a pattern older than time, written in the same geometry that guides the stars. And as you understand this, something softens. The resistance to change, the fear of ending, the illusion of separateness. Because when you recognize that you are part of the great wheel, you stop trying to control its motion. You begin to move with it, gently, gracefully, like a leaf on the tide. This is peace, not the absence of movement, but harmony with it. To live is to turn, to return, to transform. And somewhere deep in that turning lies a quiet knowing that even as worlds rise and fall, what you truly are, awareness itself, remains untouched, eternal.
As the wheel turns, the rhythm slows. The stars drift quietly into place, like candles being dimmed one by one. The vastness no longer feels distant. It feels gentle, surrounding you like a tide of calm light. You can sense the ancient pulse beneath all things, the slow heartbeat of creation itself. And as you breathe, that pulse aligns with yours. You are not just in the universe is within you. It hums through every atom, every thought, every dream. The eternal return is not only about ages and empires. It is the whisper of your own heartbeat, reminding you that nothing truly ends. The night is not darkness. It is the space between notes, the pause between breaths, the quiet where meaning gathers before being born again. You too are part of this cosmic symphony, the music of existence, repeating, but never the same twice. Even now, as you listen, millions of stars are dying, and millions more are being born. Somewhere a civilization rises, elsewhere another falls into legend. And yet awareness remains, the silent witness behind it all. That witness is you. As you drift deeper into sleep, remember that you are part of this grand cosmic dance. Civilizations rise and fall like waves, but consciousness endures, calm, ancient, infinite. The stars that guided the pharaohs, the sailors, the dreamers, still shine above you tonight. Their light crosses oceans of time to touch your eyes, whispering, "You belong to this story. You always have, and you always will." Let go now. Let the current take you where it knows you need to go. There is no destination, only rhythm. There is no tomorrow, only return. Feel the breath, in and out. The heartbeat, here and here. The silence, endless, kind, eternal. The galaxies swirl above, and you drift with them, weightless, timeless, safe. The air around you softens into velvet darkness. The music fades to the hum of space. The voice becomes a distant echo. And finally, only silence remains, vast and welcoming, like the first dawn before time began. Rest now.
knowing you are exactly where you need to be, in this moment, in this cycle, in this eternal cosmic story. Sleep, traveler of stars. The wheel turns, the song continues, and the universe watches over you.